Welcome to my mom's podcast.
All right, welcome everybody. So today my guest is coming to us all the way from, is it Brooklyn?
Yes, Brooklyn, New York.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience today?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Led Bradshaw, and I'm the creator of Jetpulse Comics. I'm coming here from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, New York, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I am so honored that you were able to squeeze the time to meet with me today on the podcast, and hopefully we're going to be popping this up on the Early Childhood Journeys YouTube channel as well, so stay tuned for that.
Awesome.
I wanted to just give a little bit of connection on how you landed on my pod, and I know you weren't aware of just how I came across your work, right?
You know what? Could you please tell me again? Because I remember you telling me before in a previous phone call, and it's just I tried to explain to someone else, and I think I was too excited. I couldn't do it. So
and I have to give him props. And I know I messaged him. So I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and through my Facebook feed, I came across Shannon Hernandez's Facebook post. And Shannon is a radio DJ here, a local DJ for alternative rock station, KUPD. And he posted about just coming across you and your work, the comics. And he was just so lovely about the post. And he was like, you guys got to check this out. This is so inspirational. I mean, it was just so lovely. And so I think it was my husband maybe that shared his page when he posted about that. And I came across it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get this person on my podcast. This is exactly what I want to hear. I want to highlight this type of work because number one, when you'll go into it, but as a parent, we can connect with your work. And number two, as an educator as well. So Shannon Hernandez, shout out to you if you hear this podcast, but I'll be sure to tag him on this. So that's how I came across your work, Lynn.
Wow, thank you, Shannon Hernandez, and thank you very much because that is an amazing story. I had no idea, considering
it's a small world.
From Brooklyn, New York, and from Arizona. I mean, that's amazing. It's mind blowing. I mean, when you told me this, I'm like, wait, did she say that correctly? I'm like, I don't know anyone in Arizona.
And he's known as the Shan Man. That's his radio personality, the Shan Man.
I have to look him up and thank him.
Yes,
nuts.
I'm sure he'd love that. He'd be tickled. But I came across your work, and I don't want to give too much away. So let's kind of start back. And I'm sure you've told this story before.
Okay.
You are the creator of Jetpulse Comics. That was an inspiration of your son. So can you kind of give us some insight there?
Yes. Jetpulse Comics was inspired by the refrigerator drawings of my son. And I started this. It's funny because Jetpulse Comics wasn't even an idea when I first started this. I remember when Jake was about 3.5, we started noticing the symptoms of autism, and it was around pre-K age, around 4, when he was when we had the diagnosis. Now he was always very big on superheroes, and he would always talk about superheroes. He would always want us to buy costumes, and this is the way how he interacted. He wanted to play in he's got thousands of these costumes. I'm exaggerating with thousands, but there are at least 100. So there's every variant of Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, you name it, he has it. And but the thing was that his special interest was overwhelming, and he couldn't really he was falling behind with the other students in his class. So after talking with his teachers and working with developmental pediatricians, trying to find a way to help him, the best thing that I could do is start looking things up, maybe I started Googling everything.
Yeah.
So I
As
came
any
across
parent would, yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is because I've been an artist. Like, I mean, I'm not an artist really, but I've been drawing ever since I was about the age of 2 or 3. My mom says.
Mm.
Um, so when I came across articles about like art therapy and art therapy exercises, I figured that would be a good idea, a good starting point, since I know how to draw, and what kid doesn't love drawing? So, so we started there, and this is my way of basically helping him like express himself, because at that time he also had a speech delay, so his speech was actually, it was very limited. He was only limited to maybe like his vocabulary was only just a few words, some very small sentences, like "I want juice" or "What's that?" or "Who's this?" But nothing in a conversational manner as other children.
Mm.
So I figured it would be a good way to help him learn certain words that we could start with, like basics, like sun, and like kind of draw a picture of the sun and spell it and get him used to
Mhm.
that. So uh, from drawing every day, like that's when it started to come out. The Jake Jetpulse character started coming out, and he would draw himself as a superhero and his little superhero team and his little adventures. And I thought it was amazing because
Wow.
he would tell me about these wonderful little stories that he had, and I kept every single one of them. So as time went on, and I noticed he was still having trouble in school, that's when I started working with this teacher, and I I would spend like a few hours every night after he went to sleep translating the work, like combining the work with his like with his comic book characters to help him identify. That's where it
Yeah.
started. Yeah.
Wow. I think it's amazing that you took the initiative to just kind of do that research on your own. Um, I don't know. I have a lot of little questions as a parent. Who, like, I guess at what age? So how old is he now?
He's
'Cause
8. He's 8 years old now.
and he was kind of roughly diagnosed when?
At 4 years old. Yeah. I mean, like the I guess like we started noticing like
The
some of the
signs.
symptoms we started noticing around 3.5 or so, and like that's when we finally, like, we went through like several evaluations at that time. Maybe okay, maybe a few evaluations. We had 3 evaluations actually, but it felt like forever. When you're
Oh
going
my
through
God,
those,
yes.
like it's like you feel like they'll never end, and it's like so after like 2 or 3 evaluations, it was like, yeah, it was 3. It was definitely 3. And we worked with a really great developmental pediatrician too, and she was very helpful. Um, that once we received like the autism diagnosis, it was funny because at the time I was really confused. I didn't understand anything about it at all.
Yeah.
I didn't. I have a few friends whose children have Down syndrome, but I've never any that had autism. So that was that was something for me to find out. Like I want to know what kind of life that he would have, what kind of what kind of therapy is involved. I had no idea. So I think that was where I started from there.
Now, and I was going to jump to this a little bit into more of our conversation, but I guess for the parents that are listening to us
Hmm.
that are might be going through some similar situations with their own young child,
Right.
reflecting back, what is maybe a piece of advice for that parent? Number one, once they find out that there is something going on,
Right.
how do you deal with that, emotionally, I guess?
Take
How
a
do
breath. Like understand that it's not your fault.
you,
It's really not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Don't go through the family tree trying to figure out like where it came from.
thank you. I'm glad you're saying, because there's a lot of guilt, parent guilt, that that process. I feel like.
Yeah, I went through it too. I did the
Yeah.
whole Gene Pool Dick Tracy thing too. I went through the entire thing trying to figure out on both like his mother's side and mine, trying to figure out who the weird uncle was, the strange aunt. I was trying to figure out who it was, who's the culprit. But you're just beating yourself, like beating your head against the wall if you're going to do that. The idea is like understand that these things happen. There's really no answers as to why it happens. It's just my advice is, if like for a parent just getting a diagnosis, just early intervention, start there. The earlier the better.
Yeah.
So your chances are better, taking care of those quirks and, working on those, like working on their, like, strengthening their weaknesses, starting early is the best thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. What would you say now working with his teacher? Now this teacher, a new teacher, a new, kindergarten or first grade teacher has this child. What was a tip for that teacher?
Okay. Well, parent-teacher conversations were always pretty. I had to put my hat back here because
He just flipped his hat backwards, folks.
yeah, that's when that's when the thoughts are, they're light speed now. So that's when I'm recollecting a thought from my long-term memory. I have to put the hat back there. Well, working with these teachers, it was like I really try my best to form a relationship with the teachers, as far as like from, since we were building routines at home, maybe like I would always suggest like talk about superheroes. That's what he likes. And and that this is where the Jake Jetpulse thing came in. It's like, like talk about superheroes. He likes that. Like if you could like probably throw something in there instead, like wording the question like, okay, if Superman has 2 capes and like Batman has 1, how many do they have? And like that would encourage him like to think and say like, oh, there's 3, because like you're reading a question to him and he would just talk about superheroes, and he would just like deflect from whatever the lesson was. But if I could just get his attention, if I could just pull him in, just reel him in, and that was one of my suggestions, try that and see if it works. And then we just kept doing that. And what she would do also was reward him, because right now he's in a bridge class. I'm not, if you're familiar with that, it's like a 12 to 1-to-1 setting. So it's one teacher, and like there's there's 12 kids, and there's para,
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right.
Contained classroom. Okay.
Right. So when he's in, like, when they're in groups, when they're in groups and working throughout the day, like whenever he does something, he's like, rewarded with either like a puzzle, and that's usually like a superhero, something superhero related, like like
Okay.
a small figurine or something that he'll bring home, like a little Superman puzzle. And these are the things that we were working with, like to try to get him into it. And then when we saw that, okay, he was paying a little bit more attention, that's when I started taking his artwork and then working from there and like trying to make flashcards. And that's where I started at first. So I
Yeah.
would take the teacher's daily sight words she would have, and then I would take my drawings and then turn them into like little flashcards and hold them up like, okay, what does this say? And what does that say? And that's how I got him into identifying.
Now, I have to say, even if, we weren't talking about a child that was on the spectrum, that right there for any child is making the learning relevant.
Right.
Like I want my teachers and my parents that are listening, that while yes, we're talking about Led's son who is on the autism spectrum, you want to make that accommodation and that interest regardless, because you want the learning, you want them to be excited about their sight words, and how can I connect these sight words to his interests? That's what we should be doing in good practice in the classroom. So I have to mention that, because it shouldn't take a dad to come and provide these ideas. These are things that are just good practice. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Led, because I think it's just worth noting that we want to make these accommodations with our kids, regardless, because when we have a student that is on the spectrum in our classroom, when we do make that extra accommodation, everybody else benefits. I bet you other students wanted to see those sight words with superheroes, like, regardless.
And that was the great part about it. It was that the children in his class, they connected with it almost immediately. And what I did, it was by accident. I was only like Jake wanted to make his own book, and that was his thing. So for his 5th birthday, I asked him what he wanted. Like for his birthday, I'm expecting him to say a remote control car or whatever, a video game, and he says, I want my own comic book company.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. So I do that. I'm like,
I don't know, Santa Claus. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, I don't know the first thing about starting a business, and then like I just said, you know what? Hey, what the hey? Let me try it. Let me figure out what to do here. So I created this own little. I wanted it to. Like at first, it was just a collection of all of the daily work that I had put together since he was 4, and I put it on a website. And I had no idea that the website. This is how clueless I am. That once I put it on this website, I mean, it's searchable by somebody on.
Yeah.
Right. And then someone found it and wrote to me and said, hey, this is awesome. And I'm like, wait, hold on. And then that's the next thing I knew was like, okay, like, let's give it a shot. I sat with him. And since it's his story, I let him do all the writing. That was another reason for getting him involved, was that Jake, these are all of his stories.
That's awesome.
And I let him dictate everything. I turned on my voice recorder on the phone and just let him tell me everything and anything about these characters. So
I just have so many lesson plans coming out by you saying this. Just taking that audio file from your student or your child, and then going from there and talk about integrating other learning material that you have to cover. Like, but this is in a meaningful way.
That's the beautiful thing about this. And I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because the next book that I'm doing in this series is going to teach history. So it's basically like one of the main supervillain of the story goes back into time, and and Jake and his comic book his comic book teammates, they meet certain people in history. So, in the next story, they'll visit like Abraham Lincoln, and another one they'll visit Amelia Earhart or Mother Teresa, or different moments in history, different events in history they'll learn about. So it should be fun going into next year, and so right now I'm currently putting that together with him. So it's to help him learn, history, and with the same thing too, you can also take this story and incorporate science lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Like math. I was working on developing a character that are like subject specific, like having a villain that does everything through math, or one that does everything through like different, so they can learn. So it's great that you mentioned that, because there's so many ways that you can go with this character, and I see the way how the children enjoy it, and I just want to keep going. It's amazing how
yes.
How, like, mm-hmm.
And I want to mention, we're gonna give you our audience here opportunity to check out your website. We'll plug it in on our show notes and at the end as well, because you have some resources that are available for purchase for educators, and just an overall outlook on your website. Some insights on working with children that are on the spectrum, or just your story as well.
Yeah.
How to so stay tuned for that to contact Led. I wanted to also mention some misconceptions. So what would you say in general are some misconceptions about, first, what others thought about your son with his diagnosis, maybe with family? The second is just the work that you're doing.
Okay.
I know you're talking about your work with others. What's been some misconceptions?
Okay, well, some of the misconceptions, I'll start with Jake first. A lot of misconceptions that I've had. Well, when I'm interacting with certain people out in public, it's they're not really familiar with what autism is. So I have to explain it. I'll have to explain it to them. I've learned, like through experience, never to apologize for any of my son's quirks, because that's another misconception too. Because it, like, making friends, like he has a few like good friends, but there's other like children or like parents who think that he's forgive me for saying, like, the weird child. And it's not that he's weird. Like, he expresses himself differently. He's learning, he's learning the world around him differently, right? And it's like, and also too, he's also like tall for his age. At 8 years old, he's 4'11", so he's a very tall child. So a lot of people think that he's older than what he is. and he's a very, sensitive, very shy, very shy kid. He's really sweet. But I think that the biggest thing, the biggest misconception is like people who don't understand, what autism is, and they just go by either the stereotypes or the myth of what this is. So they kind of generalize him or cut him short, you know, as far as like this learning and development, when really, like, Jacob is a very smart and very creative child. And there's a lot of children who are just like him, a lot of children who are also very creative, very, very intelligent. And it's not that they can't be taught. It's just that they have a different ways of learning and different ways of absorbing that information. So I spend a lot of time like talking to parents and like the children in the children and parents in the playground when I take them out. And when they do ask questions, I don't get offended. I'm more than happy to answer those questions because at least it helps another person understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as far as my work, as far as what I do, a lot of people think that, oh, well, this is just an opportunity for me to just like make a name for myself, and it's not. It's really what I want to do is help other children.
Yeah.
Who are on the, like, this is something that's not only just for children on the autism spectrum, but it's for all children. We were just
Yeah.
earlier. This is something, a way that that children can learn, grasp, and like retain the information. I mean, it's like I grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons, and some of like the best moments, I remember was sitting in front of my television on a Saturday morning with a big bowl of really sweet cereal. So, but it's not meant to replace, it's not meant to replace the curriculum, like, or the teacher. What my goal is basically to help, like, use this as a companion to reinforce lessons. So, like, I invite like teachers, educators, therapists. Like, I would love to sit with them, like talk with them, like even help develop something.
Yeah.
That that everyone can enjoy, and that all the children will be able to use.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we get caught up in these curriculums as if we can't have other ideas. And I always say, your curriculum is just your foundation, and then your personalization pieces like this is the supplements. You sprinkle that onto that,
Right,
in that curriculum box, I guess. Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So what about? Let's talk about. How can we support your work? Tell us where we can find you.
You can locate me, or like go to the website. It's www.jakejetpulse.com, and you can send me your feedback. I would love to hear from like the parents, educators, teachers, therapists, everyone. Everything that anything that you guys have, any suggestions, I would love to hear it. That way I would, like I said, this is the way how I want to help our kids. And I'm really inspired by Jake and his story. And I see how creative he is. I see how wonderful it is. And I see the way how the other children in his class have taken to this character. And I could imagine what it would be like to see, to see this everywhere. Yeah, that's what I want. I guess what I want is just like contact me, and let's talk about like ways that we can help. The ways that we can help the help out the kids.
Absolutely.
That's the best thing to do. So it's like, as I mentioned, we have stories about like history or science or things like that. We can, and it's and I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I absolutely. I don't think there's many opportunities where the community is called to collaborate on such a meaningful project that directly can affect kids. And
well, that's what I wanted to build as a community. That's what it's for. When if you look at this site, I call the learning part of my website Jetpulse Academy.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do is make the parents and children feel like they were like recruits into something bigger. That they were stepping into something much larger than just a comic book character. That it was actually more of instead of just a character, he becomes more like a symbol for something. Like he stands for something. for education, for learning, for empowerment, for like something courageous. And that's what I was looking that's what I was looking to create.
Absolutely. And it's fun. It's fun to learn this way.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I mean, absolutely. I go back to just making it meaningful for kids.
Mm.
I know for myself, for the folks that are listening, you actually made a little comic out of me, comic character out of me. I'll post that again for those of you guys that are following. I'll post it on the Facebook page. I'm pretty active on Twitter, but you made a little. You took my image. I was and you made it into like this comic, and I was just so excited. Like I thought I was another like a little girl again. I'm like, oh my god, I'm a comic. Everyone needs to see this. This is amazing. I mean, and I just and I saw the images and I saw the work, and I mean that's just so awesome for kids. And I see these opportunities where we can do something a little different than the standard curriculum and hone in on the children's interests, which is the main part.
Right. And
Yeah.
if I also could add too, is that like for me growing up, comic books and cartoons, they were like I learned more than just like the action and excitement. Like if you can recall like the public service,
Yeah.
like just at the end of cartoons, I feel like in the way the world is now that we need like positive role models, and like by bringing in like bringing comic books back from like dark and edgy to innocent and fun. That's what I was looking forward to. Something where they can walk away like learning something. I remember there was a lot of things that like words that I learned when I was watching cartoons that I didn't even know. I didn't even learn in school. I was like, what does that mean? And I would go and look it up, or it would be in quotations at the bottom of the page. So this is a great way. And I also wanted to show you something. I
Yeah.
like saying this is might be on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll show you this. Okay. This
I'll
is,
describe it for our listeners.
check this out. This was the very first appearance of Jake Jetpulse. This is what Jake drew in the beginning.
So he's showing us like a drawing from his son, and I know we're gonna need to throw that up online. You got to get a.
Well, I can send you the image like if you like, and what to give you an idea is that
so you still have his original artwork.
I keep everything. I never throw anything out. It's valuable. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about this was each panel that he drew in this little comic, is what I translated into the actual book here.
Oh, that's amazing. He's showing the actual comic book, but that's so cool. You gave him the actual panels to put out his storyline.
Right. So it's his story, it's his words. And what I did was put it together in a comic book form that other children and other parents can follow along and enjoy.
Yeah.
Because it's like by him creating this character and me adding the academics in there, like it just made him want to learn more. It made him want to follow the character more because it looked like him.
That's super important.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that I will put it in there that we need to have more people of color role models. So that's another important point.
Yes. So like by having because he's half black and half Puerto Rican. So by having like an Afro Latino like superhero with autism,
that's awesome.
I had no idea what I was creating.
Yeah, but I mean, that's such a good point. It's such a good point, that representation for kids.
Yes. So now, by having a character that looks like them, that they can identify with. I mean, we all had our Supermans, our Batmans, but like, how many characters did we have that were like us growing up?
Right.
There really weren't that many.
Right.
So now this is an opportunity for everyone else to have something that represents them, and that's a great thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, give me the website one more time before I let you go.
Sure. The site is www.jakejetpulse.com. All one word.
Thank you so much for coming on here. I really appreciate it. My mind is just kind of turning right here. I feel like we got to do like a blog or something to continue the conversation. I just have so many ideas and tips, that you can do and to connect more with that community, with parents and educators. So thank you so much again.
And thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity. Awesome. Thank you so much.